Welcome to the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm May Emson, your host, leadership and mindset coach. Here, we talk all things spiritual, mindset, business, leadership, and wellness for the modern seeker who wants to align their life with purpose and inspiration. We'll cover career changes, stress management, meditation, energy, intuition, and more. Each episode holds spiritual and practical tools to help you live a life of your wildest dreams without getting burnt out along the way. Ready to live a life on your own terms? This is the Own Your Best Life podcast. So welcome, friends, to episode number 116 of the Own Your Best Life podcast. So we will often come across people with personalities that seem larger than life, and they seem to take over conversations and situations, and they leave you wondering what happened. So how do we work and how do we live with people who seem to not only have big personalities, but also opinions and ways of working that are different from our own? So today's podcast is going to reveal where we are giving away our power and how do we stand firm without aggression. So we're often attracted to those people who are different from us. They inspire us to think differently, to see things from a different perspective. And the difference is, however, that we're challenging in the best possible way in the beginning start to give way to being challenging in the least desirable way. Why can't they just agree with you? Why does everything have to feel so hard? And these are the thoughts we have as we have conversations and as we start to struggle with big personalities. And what happens when we start to resent these differences is that we try to actually avoid working or interacting with these people. And we don't talk about topics that are important to us because they are really challenging to work through. And while it seems like this is a good strategy for the short term to diffuse all those really high emotions like anger or frustration, they're not strategies for a sustainable long-term relationship. If you can't talk about or be honest about what's most important to you with those people who play a critical role in our lives, whether they are your family member, whether they are your boss or your manager or your team members or your peers, we often feel this sense of inauthenticity, and we feel a sense of resentment, and we feel a sense of blame, right? We feel like, why can't we bring our whole selves to the relationship? It is their fault. And we think we can't be the best version of ourselves and live our lives to the fullest and enjoy ourselves because they're the ones that stop us from doing what it is we want to do. So I want to talk about power here because that's really important, and that's a key part of this conversation. We wouldn't be so angry or resentful or scared of these kind of people if you didn't think that they would impact your life negatively. So your power lies in your ability to see that they don't have an impact on your life. How can this be true, you might be asking, if they are a family member or someone that you work with and are close to? Your career could be at stake, or your intimate relationships. I get it. It feels impossible to think that these people wouldn't have a negative impact, especially if we feel that our behavior and our ways of thinking are correct and that their behaviors and their ways of thinking are wrong. And so I wanted to note this before we continue on this conversation, that if you or your loved ones or your coworkers are truly in harm's way, then go seek immediate help. Call 911, leave the situation, and find a way to remove yourself and others from harm. It is important to note that when we're talking about big personalities, I'm not talking about abuse, which is treating others with cruelty or violence. An abuse needs to be handled immediately with a level of directness that allows for your own safety. So what I am talking about is big personalities. These are outward displays of opinions that may be different from your own, but they are not cruel and they are not violent. They can impact you, however, negatively if you do one or two of these things. First one is you try to change people and then you get mad or angry or frustrated when it doesn't work. And the second is if you have ill will or feelings of malintent towards that person. And so in order for you to not have an impact, to not feel that person's reaction, their ways of being, and have that come into your life negatively, you have to remove the power for them to impact you. How do you do that? So one way is to actually think about that feeling of anger or worry or frustration. Can you allow it to just move through you? Can you just allow the emotions, which will happen, you are human after all, to exist and then be present and then go away? So if you can acknowledge the emotions, even the hard ones, and just let them to continue pass through you, you're going to let the power over you start to subside. And so power comes from the ability to let the energy affect you. And when you let the energy stay with you, that is where the power of the person's energy and their impact starts to build. So the task is for you to continue to always let that energy move through you, to just be there and let it go. So things like, for example, replaying that interaction over and over and over again is going to keep that energy within you. And the one thing you don't want or need, so you got to just stop playing that interaction, be in the present moment and let it go. Some of the difficulties come up because you think to yourself, well, they're asking me to do something that I don't want to do. And objectively, you have two choices. I agree with you. You don't want to do it, but you do have two choices, yes or no. You always have free will. Perhaps not doing the thing is going to jeopardize your relationship or your job, but it is still a choice. And this is a hard thing, I understand, to hear sometimes, but the victim role only exists if you see yourself with no options. And you might feel that way right now, but I urge you to start to see, even when it seems impossible, what options can exist for you to think about this differently. So keep asking that question if you feel like you're stuck. So it's often when we ask, what else can I do? What else can I think? How else can I see this? I'm willing to shift my perspective here. And we do that over and over and over again before we realize that there are options. Maybe we don't like the options, but they do exist. And if we want to truly move forward, we have to see that the original limited thinking that we had might not be the best path forward. So ultimately, we do have to decide at some point, do I want to be right? Right? I think they're wrong and I'm right. So do we want to be right? And so you might think that the way the other person does things is just objectively terrible, objectively sad, objectively wrong. You are allowed to have those thoughts and those feelings. Yet, if we try to change people to be who we want them to be, we see them as entirely wrong or terrible or sad. It isn't very useful. What is more useful is in understanding them. What if you were wrong? What if they think completely rationally and we're the ones who don't? And what if what they think and how they act makes complete sense? Can you accept that they have a different worldview that is different from your own? And based on their worldview, what they're saying, what they're doing is not just acceptable, but it's the right, quote unquote, thing to do. So then the question becomes, well, who is really right here? And that's hard for us sometimes because we are so fixed on this idea of being right and wrong, of justifying where we stand. It's me against you instead of us shoulder to shoulder as teammates and team members working through a thing. And we often lose perspective. We forget. 20 years from now, we want to have better, we want to have different memories than what we have today of this situation. So what would we want to see about the way we handle this situation 20 years from now? How would our best or our spiritual self, the one who knows and has all of your wisdom and everyone else's, handle this? And often the answer would be that they would give up that need to be right. They would try to see it from someone else's point of view. And from there, they will start to utilize influence. From there, they will stand firm. And this is how you maintain that connection with your own self, with also being firm about your own boundaries. So your energy has to be firm and grounded. This means that you have to know what you believe is good for you, and not just for yourself, but for others as well. So am I objectively thinking that the thing I want is actually good for them too? If it was so clear, so easily communicated, why don't they understand it? Right? There must be something that you're not saying. There must be something that you're not seeing. That there must be something that can be done differently. And this is what I mean about the different options. So sometimes people think, well, the only option is to leave, or the only option is to agree. And that's not true. You could agree with them and also tell them that I don't believe in this, but I agree that from your point of view, you see it this way. But from my point of view, here is what it looks like. Or you might say, tell me more. I see it this way. I'd like to understand what you're seeing and why you're seeing it that way, right? So it's imagining if they were you and you were trying to communicate something to someone, you would love it if they were to ask you more questions to really understand, not just fight against you, but get on the same page. All we want to do at the end of the day is feel seen, and so does the other person. They're upset, they're angry, they have a feeling and a thought and an emotion, and they want to feel heard. And you might say, well, I have heard them. I've heard them over and over, and I'm tired of hearing them. So yes, that might be the case, but it doesn't mean that they still don't need that, or they're still not seeking that. So if you actually want some of the release of that energy to be used for good, you can stop letting that thing just come up against you and you push it back. Instead, you can let it come up to you. You take a breath and then you let it go. You decide in that moment what is the best right next thing to do. And that means is that you become very flexible. You start to know that they can't control you, and they don't control you, nor do they have ultimate power over you. And why is that? Well, because you have free will too. And if you can stand strong in your own energy, then other people's noise are going to drown out. And you're going to have much more room for other people to be with you. And instead of feeling like you have to block these big personalities or counter them really aggressively, you can just stay calm, you can stay collected, you can stay in certainty of what you know to be true, you can be curious, and you start to think about, well, this is why I feel this way, I get it, why do you feel that way? But you come at it from a place of, I understand how the world works for me, which is that it's a benevolent place. And everything here, what they're saying, this whole situation, is for my own growth. And if I don't understand this, and if I keep having resistance, I'm going to continue to have it over and over and over again with people going forward. And so to finish this up, I just want to remind you that if you keep experiencing these big personalities again and again, this isn't a bad thing. But just check in to see if you're giving away your power by trying to change them through aggression, which leaves you feeling resentful of their bigness. And let yourself take up some space, not from a reaction to them, but as just a normal practice. When you allow yourself to do that, you start to resent people less when they do that themselves. So you have to come back to yourself. You have to come back to that higher perspective of what the situation looks like from a spiritual lens. If you want to live a life where you feel more connected to more people, then you're going to want to feel less resentful of certain people. And this is why it's worth the work. So that's it for this week, my friends. I hope you have an amazing one, and I will talk to you next time. If you want to learn how to navigate your own career and your own life with more confidence in your decisions, reach out at mayemson.com/contact to schedule a consultation. It is that next step to learning more about whether or not coaching is right for you. And in our coaching together, we will simplify your life, create more freedom of choice, and learn how to live in the present moment. All right, my friends, have a good one. Thanks so much for joining us this week on Own Your Best Life. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, can you please rate and review on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. Share it with a friend, take a screenshot of it, and tag @MayEmpson. This helps continue to get the word out. For more show notes and resources, check out www.mayempson.com. You'll have all the links to everything you heard here today. Thanks so much for listening. It's time to own your best life.